in the created by our county administrator, Mike Fromer's departure from the county. And so we'll talk in a minute about how we address that. I'll ask if there's any public comment this morning. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 3 on our agenda, approval of the minutes from our August board meeting. If you've had a chance to review those, I'd entertain a motion.
So move.
I have a motion for Mr. Blaney.
Second.
Second for Mr. Keeley. Are there any additions or deletions or modifications? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item 4 is the election of an officer, the vice chairman. As I mentioned, Mike Fromer has left his position as county administrator, and that creates a vacancy in the office of vice chairman that he holds. And so that position will likely remain vacant until there's a new county administrator appointed. And I don't want to speak for the commissioner, but it seemed logical and consistent that the county administrator would serve in that capacity once a new person has been hired. And so I don't personally feel any urgency about filling that vice chairman position today. And maybe we give the commissioners some space and time to fill that position, and then we can take up the election of the vice chairman once that's done. But if any of you feel, that's my feeling about that we could give that space. There's not necessarily urgency surrounding filling that officer spot, but if any of you feel differently about that, I'd be glad to hear that. So
I concur. Yeah, I don't think it'll cause us any harm, because if you become disabled, the rest of the board could just meet and elect somebody. So that'd be all right.
Still have a quorum, and
Yeah.
we're still have 4 of the 5 board positions filled at this point. So we'll revisit this again at our next meeting and see where we stand at that point. Item 5 would be the chairman's report. The only thing I have to report is, just like many of you, and watching what's going on in Washington with regards to an infrastructure bill, whether we have one or we don't have one, or what it'll ultimately look like, whether it'll be connected to other legislation. And so I don't have anything to report there other than just to say we're watching that, hopeful that more money federally for transportation infrastructure means more money for ODOT, which hopefully will mean more money for Delaware County and our TID board. So really nothing more to share on that front. Cy, would you give us your Secretary Treasurer's report?
Yeah, the current cash balance is $4,519,357.04. And I'd also like to report that for the second year in a row, that we have received the Ohio Auditor State Award for excellence in financial reporting.
Well done. Congratulations.
That's all I have.
Are there any questions for Cy? I'd entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Move to accept. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any other reports or action discussion items from other members of our board? Hearing none, I'd move on to our staff report from Chief Deputy Engineer Rob Riley.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I'll start with what Mr. Brosman already mentioned, the board member vacancy. It sounds like we'll wait until the appointment of a new county administrator, which will certainly be fine. Moving on to the Home Road and Sawmill Parkway project, we do have 2 resolutions relating to that project shortly. Just to recap, we received 5 bids for this construction project. ranging from 4.1 to 4.8 million. Unfortunately, those bids were a good bit higher than our engineer's estimate. We had estimated this contract at about 3.5 million. I would point out, though, that we are not bound by the 110% provision of the revised code relating to public works projects, and so there is no requirement to re-advertise this bid. We did take an opportunity to talk to some of the contractors, some of the bidders, and try to get a feel for, why the cost was higher than we estimated. There is some concern about cost escalation, and the bidders, from what we were told, build in some expectation of cost escalation with materials and particularly fuel prices. I think oil is currently over $80 a barrel right now, and that will certainly have an effect on fuel prices moving ahead. Also, with all the federal American Recovery Act funds reaching the local agencies, it's generally expected there's going to be quite a few projects coming out as a result of that at the local level, and so there's an expectation there'll be a larger construction program for most local agencies next year and the years following. So basically all that adds up to the fact that, or our opinion, that we won't save any money if we go out and rebid this. So
I'd like to add my perspective on that from what I'm sitting on with the health department, a new construction project. Other than the pre-engineered metal building, we've seen a 7.5% increase in cost because of materials only for the job. And if the building manufacturer would get what we've heard he wants, we'd be close to 15%, and that's pretty much what people I've talked to have been experiencing as far as material cost increase. Of course, we're pretty well tied into the labor because it's a public contract, and so that's all prevailing wage. So it pretty much follows the path of what we're experiencing over here at the health department.
and we have under previous county commissioner contracts, not TID contracts in the past, where we have seen bids come in over the estimate and rebid. We've never seen any savings. It's generally accepted, what I perceive to be a pattern. Contractors don't lower their bids. They give you their best price up front. And if anything, we've even seen prices go up a little bit after the first bid. So again, that I think, Mr. Blaney, I think your observation is a good one, because that's a very current situation. So I believe I informed you last meeting we were successful in getting a $400,000 grant through the ODOT TID grant program for that project, so we're very happy to see that. So if there's no questions on that project, I'll move ahead. And really, all that remains, just a very quick recap. Hyatt's in 23, that project is complete. We're just wrapping up the final project accounting, and we'll have a certificate for you to approve likely at the November meeting. Same with the North Road extension. That project was completed on schedule and delivered for the new elementary school. So the Olentangy Local Schools superintendent called to thank Mike Fromer. He mentioned that at the last meeting, and so I think that the school's happy with that road, as are we. And then finally, the route, or the Interstate 71, 36, 37 interchange project. I've been working with MS Consultants on a scope and fee for that project. I think we've come to a tentative agreement on that contract, and so one of the things we'll need to talk about and decide, and feel free to comment or provide me any input right now, whether we want to proceed with that at the November meeting. There would need to be a project agreement with the Board of Commissioners for a deposit of the funds to pay that project, so, or to pay that contract cost. So subject to your board's direction, we can proceed, or I can proceed with getting that contract in place. So that's all the updates I have.
Well, concerning that interchange, I'd certainly, I know, we'd be waiting on the state to finish their environmental work, but, I don't see why it couldn't be run in tandem, because it's in in my mind, from what I've seen around there, it's pretty clear cut what the design area is going to be, so it's already been studied somewhat environmentally, so I don't see this, my thinking is there shouldn't be any hiccups, so I'd certainly support moving ahead with it.
What's needed then for us to move ahead?
Really just your direction, which I think I've already talked with Mr. Bosman about this. I think the county engineer's office were supportive of moving ahead. Certainly want to make sure that there's concurrence from your board in doing that. But if there's concurrence, I'll go ahead and get excuse me, a contract drawn up with the consulting engineer and a project agreement drafted with the Board of Commissioners. So that would be at the November meeting for your board's approval.
Would you like a motion to that effect?
I don't think we need a motion to,
Okay,
but if there was any hesitancy among any of us, we might reconsider putting the effort into
sure.
getting an agreement before the commissioners and then agreement with us. So we just wanted to have some general discussion about that. I'd also point out this project highlights some of the unique benefits of the TID, and that we can negotiate a fee here with a consultant who's already been involved in the project up until this point in a private party transaction with the private sector. For ODOT to convert this into a public project at this point is what, a 9-month to a year process of them seeking proposals and going through a qualification-based selection process. This is where our TID can be more agile and timely, and can simply negotiate a fee and move forward and save time. And I think through our negotiation, even save some money in the project as well. So I think this is a good use of the flexibility that the legislature gave TIDs, and I fully support us moving ahead. I also would point out the importance of this project, not just to the traffic impacts around the 3671 interchange, but also to economic development in that immediate area, and then a little further west, the Berlin Business Park. So much of the viability of that project hinges on good access to the interstate highway system, and so this is important from that standpoint as well. Rob, thanks for your work on that to date. Hearing no objections, let's move ahead with
Very good.
Working on an agreement with the commissioners and then with this board. Any other questions for Rob on his report or any other projects? Moving on to item 9, resolution 2012-06. This is the first amendment to the project agreement for the Home Road and Sawmill Parkway improvements. And these, the amendment is really to amend the dollar amounts to align with the bids that we received. In groundwork for this resolution and the resolution that follows, just to follow up on what Rob said about rebidding. Again, another example of the flexibility that our TID has not to have to go back and rebid this. If we did go back and rebid it, the impact would be more time and less contractor availability, and would not result ultimately in savings in the dollar amount, in our opinion. And so I fully support us proceeding under again, the flexibility that our TID board has not to have to go back and re-advertise and receive bids and revise the estimate. So, any discussion about this amendment, this resolution amending our project agreement? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I actually omitted a motion and a second, so I should back up and,
I'll make the motion.
Pat Blaney makes a motion,
Is that for both?
just one at a time, so this would be
One at a
item,
time,
yeah.
Second.
Tom Price seconded that. Now we'll take a vote on that procedurally. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Now the motion carries, Sarah. Item 10 would be awarding the contract for Home Road and Sawmill Parkway. And,
That's Shelley and Sands, that's the
It
B
is.
part.
I'm sorry?
That's the B part of this.
Yes.
Yes.
I move to accept that also, please.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Is there other business anyone wants to bring before our board this morning? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved,
Second.
seconded. Anybody object to us adjourning? Hearing none,